Hello and welcome to the HR Like a Boss podcast. I'm your host, John Browne. I have embarked on a journey to get to know amazingly awesome HR and business professionals with the hope to find out what it takes to do HR like a boss. If you enjoy the show, please make sure that you subscribe and hit that 5-star rating. Welcome again to another episode of the HR Like a Boss podcast. I'm your host, John Browne. I have been waiting for this episode for 4 seasons. Meghan Hensley has agreed finally to be on the HR Like a Boss podcast. If you know anything about SHRM in our local Ohio region or anything about amazingly awesome HR leaders, I'm sure Meghan Hensley comes immediately to mind. So Meghan, welcome to the show.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me, and it's my pleasure to be here today.
Please tell me what you think the purpose of human resources. How would you describe that?
Good question. I think a lot of our purpose is really just to be the liaison between the business needs, the team member needs, and the organization as a whole. Is helping people troubleshoot challenges, take down roadblocks, and making sure that the employees have a great experience. I mean, ultimately, we can't please every person. I definitely have learned that. But I think it is important that every team member feels like they have a voice, that they have somebody that's there to listen and guide them, and also understands like what are their true expectations. We so often have these policies, procedures, but really do team members understand them and are they best supporting the evolving workforce? So it's really just being that holistic business partner that understands what's going on in the business, what's going on in the world today, what are the team members' wants and needs, and how do you marry that all together?
But you talked a little bit about pre-show, this idea of belonging and respect in a workplace, something you're super passionate about. Tell me how you became so passionate about it, what it means to you, and then how can companies ensure that they're having respectful and belonging workplaces?
Yeah. So I could talk about belonging and respect for such a long time, but for the Cliff Note version of today, I would say that a lot of it has to be something that you recognize is what should start and end all of your conversations. Is how do you show up for people in the right way of respect? It is that golden rule, right? Treat others as you wish to be treated. I think was instilled in me for a long time, and I know that's easier said than done. Sometimes I used to use the example my boss would say, "We take the high road, Meghan." I love this boss. And I was like, dude, I want to go under the bridge through the mud. Like, I want to take the lowest road possible in this scenario. And he would always say, no, you're a class act, Meghan. You're going to take that high road. And I'm like, okay. But it comes up because we're human. And in HR, we are absolutely human. We're free to have emotions, but sometimes our biases come out. And it's a bias that we don't like that team member, or we don't like their work ethic. We don't like the way they look. We don't like the way they talk. We don't like their personal political beliefs. You name it, there's a bias that can come up. But I think when you center yourself around belonging as an HR leader, your job is not to necessarily have a personal opinion about the individuals. It's about to say, my job is here to be customer oriented. These are our customers. Our job is to focus on making sure that they feel included when they come here. So you think about the party when your 7-year-old self or your first freshman year of high school, you go and you're not invited, and how that felt, right? Or that moment where you walk up to a group of people that are adults and they stop talking, and how that felt. That's what happens to our team members day in and day out. They feel like they are left off the conversation, or they're not included, or they're not valued, or they're not appreciated. Not always just by HR, but it can be by colleagues, it can be by other leaders, it can be by the rules of what the organization creates. By understanding that you want to be respectful and create a sense of belonging as best as you can to wherein that person feels embraced, you will increase your retention, you'll increase your diversity, equity, inclusion. You're also going to increase your employee morale. And essentially, and I know WorkHuman has done studies on this. I know there's been a variety of studies that I've researched around this, and it really talks about how diversity, equity, and inclusion cannot thrive and live if you do not first create a culture of belonging. If your executive leaders or your directors or your frontline team members are non-inclusive individuals because they don't care about being respectful or creating a sense of belonging and welcoming new hires in, welcoming the existing staff, and it can be completely unrelated to the job. It can be based on biases. It can be based on race, gender, ethnicity, or just that sometimes there's cliques in your workforce. But how you break that down and how you ensure that team members understand and appreciate everyone has a place here and everyone is value add, then you start to create such a momentum in your culture, and everything else can thrive, and team members can feel really valued and appreciated to the point where they're not necessarily running out the door for the extra 50 cents an hour or dollar or salary raise, but that they really feel at home in the organization.
Meghan, share with the HR Like a Boss audience how you have and how you recommend others can develop their career in human resources.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a few things that I always call the successful sauce of advancing your career. One is making sure that you are never too big for any job. So making sure that you are comfortable doing things and always looking for jobs that may not be the most fitting that you think are the sexy jobs, if you will. When I was interning, I interned for Procter and Gamble, Target, and Lowe's Home Centers. All three of them offered me jobs upon graduation. Target, it was to be the customer service manager, not exactly what I wanted to do. Procter and Gamble was to be executive admin for someone, not what I wanted to do. Lowe's Home Centers said, we're going to put you through our HR leadership training program and you're going to open up a store for us. That was right in my neighborhood if you are willing to help open another store while you interned. Lowe's Home Centers, if you know anything about me, people will be like, what? But I loved it. It was great. It was super exciting. They trained me. They put me through boot camp. It was amazing. And it kickstarted my career. And my next job after that was Saks Fifth Avenue, still retail, but definitely very different, right? And then I kept going from there. And what I found was I learned so much about myself, but I also learned about other companies. And that exponential learning that I got was different ways of doing things, different walks of life of individuals, and just learning different processes. And through that, I was able to grow my knowledge. I became a director at the age of 26. I opened my first casino at the age of 28. And then I became a vice president at the age of 30. And so for me, it was all about taking chances and learning how to just say yes when opportunities came up and never trying to say, well, I really want to just be a P&G executive, because that's a real in Cincinnati. And no knock on P&G, they're amazing, but their structure probably wouldn't have been the best fit for me. And so that is just finding ways to say yes and taking those chances on the unknown. The other thing is know your personal brand and stick to it. I have always been taught by my parents is you dress for the job you want, not the job you have. I do it on a budget. Don't trust me. I was a savvy spender when I was at a young age. We were not a super wealthy family whatsoever. My parents valued education, so that's where our money went. And so for me, it was about just how do you present yourself and how do you present your personal brand. And I teach class on that for students and for employees all the time. It's like, what is your personal brand and what do you want it to say about you? That's kind of where the ball gown thing came from. Is everyone always said, Meghan dresses like she's always wears a ball gown wherever she goes. And I'm like, no, I don't. Like, and so I jokingly said, I'm going to show up when I finally lead conference. I'm going to show up in a ball gown. They're like, oh, that's fantastic. And my theme was a masquerade ball. So I was like, showing up in a ball gown every chance I get. And people thought it was so funny, but I helped at the end of conference for people to understand who I was and why that was part of my brand. So definitely saying yes to chances, definitely saying yes to your personal brand, and then finding mentor opportunities.
How would you describe someone that does HR like a boss?
Absolutely. I think it's really just, again, it's about being true to yourself. It's about caring for the individuals that you're working with. And I think being an HR boss is also not trying to mimic someone else. Be true to your brand, be true to who you are as a person, but truly be there for the people. I've seen a lot of HR people sometimes that are not necessarily what I would say they're personnel leaders, right? And they sit in the office and they do the paper pushing or they do the typing. Certainly I sit in an office and I do paper pushing and typing, but I think it's about being welcoming and embracing and really knowing to change with the way that the workforce is changing. And that is hard. It is very hard, my friends. But if you're not willing to advance yourself in your career in HR and continue to learn and grow, then it's going to get really tricky for you because the workforce is changing. The pandemic taught us anything. They taught us that you have to know how to pivot and change your game and be open to new ideas and fresh perspectives and being there for others. And so HR like a boss means you have to be willing to get out of your comfort zone and really shift that knowledge base to continue to grow and advance for the workforce that's ever advancing.
I really am so thankful that you finally came and said yes to being on the HR Like a Boss podcast. It was a total honor. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. It's my pleasure.
Thanks for checking out the HR Like a Boss podcast. If it resonates with you, please leave a rating and review, or better yet, subscribe and share with a friend. Until next time, let's continue to aspire to do amazingly awesome HR.